I remember standing in my crib yelling, I want a drink of water.
Oh,
Because we stay where we're comfortable, even though it's not comfortable. He would chase me around the house.
oh God. People always ask me, like, oh, why do you still want a relationship with your mom? And the biggest thing was,
Because I know I've made a lot of mistakes.
hey, you're the reason that this all happened to me.
Are we swearing in this podcast?
My editor can beep it.
There we go.
I'm Jordan, and this is Danny, aka the Niche Lady, here to talk about her childhood this time. Welcome to another episode of From Wise to Wise, a podcast about breaking generational trauma and overcoming victim mentality. This should be a fun one. I actually don't know much about your childhood. I know bits and pieces, but we really don't talk about yours. We only talk about our shared experience through my childhood.
That's true. That's true.
I kind of want to see the lens of what happened in your youth.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of reflecting on how I became the person I've become and the things that have made me who I am along the way. And it's interesting, the memories, like, you know, I'm almost 59. You know, that's a lot of years ago to remember, like, some very, very specific childhood memories. And I think you having a baby and like knowing that now you're going through like this parenthood thing is kind of like made me rethink things and see how you are as a parent and the progression through the generations of how the improvements have been made from, you know, what I learned, how I learned to be a parent, which was not great.
Did you learn how to be a parent, or was it
No.
just kind of like, here's a baby? Ta-da!
Well, I can tell you one of my earliest memories, and I don't know exactly how old I was, but I know I was still in a crib. And I know we lived in a little apartment in California. And I remember standing in my crib, yelling, going in the middle of the night, I want a drink of water.
Oh,
I remember that so
Aw.
clearly. And nobody came. Like, my mom finally came. But
so they believed in the cry it out method?
I don't know that, or if she was just an overwhelmed, exhausted single mom. I was 2 and my brother was 4 when my dad walked out. And I don't have any memories from back then. I just, know from what my mom has told me that I was in Wisconsin and her family was out here in,
Oh,
California.
gosh. So she was alone.
Yeah, she was alone as a new single mother. And she moved us out to California to move in with her parents, which was, we called them Mimi and Pampy. We moved out to California and moved in with my grandparents. Now, I know from having conversations with my mom later that my maternal grandfather was a very bad man. And let's just say that I know that I have pre-verbal memories of abuse. Kind of started making sense for me. Things like just being paranoid when he was around.
I can relate to that.
Being very young and being afraid to change clothes in a room where the door wasn't shut. And it never really occurred to me, as being weird at that point until I had kids of my own, watching them. Like, kids are not modest. Kids, like, that's not something kids worry about unless something has happened.
I just had this conversation with my therapist about how I'm seeing my son in diapers, and I'm like, how could anybody see a child like this sexually?
Right.
What?
I remember when I got my tonsils out, and I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember it was the year that Ruffian broke her leg in a race, because I remember being in the hospital bed
Ruffian?
watching that on the
Was it
TV.
a horse or a person?
A horse. Yeah, Ruffian was a racehorse.
A horse.
But so whatever year that was when I got my tonsils out. And I remember them wheeling me down the hall to the operating room, and I had a very short little hospital gown on, and I was absolutely paranoid that everybody could see me. And now I know that's
not normal. No, that's not normal childhood thoughts. That is something's happened to you.
Yeah. So there was that. And then, we've talked about before, school was always kind of torture. I never fit in. It was always kind of the loner. I remember my mom was a single mom and she was working full time. So we stayed at various babysitters. And there was one babysitter who kind of beat the tar out of me with a fly swatter to the point my mom took pictures and turned it into the police.
Jeez.
And it was because my brother, he wiped a booger on the back of the babysitter's pickup truck. She used to ride us around in the back of her pickup truck.
Wait, the truck? Not even on her? Just the truck?
Yes.
Okay.
And my brother said it was me. I remember she was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and I had to stand right there. And she's like, tell me what you did. And I kept saying, I didn't do it. Whack. She'd hit me.
Oof.
And finally, she hit me until I finally said, okay, fine, I did it. We never had to go back to the babysitter. My mom did file a police report because I was bruised. Like the whole side of my leg was bruised up. But those kind of stories were like pretty frequent. I always took the fall.
Well, I mean, that was the childhood of like the belt, right? Like,
yes, it was also male children had a superior position in families. The boys always somehow came out ahead. And that I kind of lived in my brother's shadow. And so I grew up always trying to win my brother's approval, always trying to be what he wanted me to be, for him to be proud of me. I never had a father figure. Never had visitation with my father. The story is that he didn't want anything to do with us. I attempted to reconnect with him when I was 20. And I actually went out to Wisconsin. Actually, I must have been a little older than 20 because you were born. So it must have been like 25. I think we started talking when I was 20. And then I went out to see him when you were a baby. Or what? Maybe I was pregnant with you. But anyway, tried to reconnect with him, open communication. He came out to California one time after you were born. I think there's some pictures somewhere. He's actually reading you a book. But your dad convinced him I was a monster and only after his money. And so he cut it off. I kept trying though. I kept Happy Father's Day, Merry Christmas, acknowledged his birthday. Like I kept doing all the things and he just never reciprocated. And finally one day I just I'm done, because through all of my therapy and stuff, I realized man, you were a kid. It really was his job, to be the parent. And I tried. I gave it my all. And he's passed away. It's not even an opportunity anymore to try to do that. But then my mother.
A big connecting piece of how we reconciled our relationship comes from the fact that when I was telling you all of the things that happened to me in my childhood that you didn't even know had happened, it was directly the same things that had happened to you in your childhood. Mm-hmm. And it was no longer about you being a bad mom, but kind of putting the pieces together of the same thing happened to me. I can relate to how you feel. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was a big piece of us being able to bridge our gap of and also me being able to say it all and not be hey, you're the reason that this all happened to me.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of empathy for my mother. I can totally understand the overwhelm of trying to raise a couple little kids and everything. And she remarried. I believe I was 8 or 9. And she got with a very bad dude. And
there's a history of that in our family. It seems it's almost that is the generational trauma.
Yes. I mean, I remember first times and all of that. And I never understood why my mother didn't do anything, why my mother didn't protect me. But I also didn't say anything. I also kind of froze.
What were you going to say as a child?
Exactly.
You don't know what. And the blame and if I felt it in the 2000s of it's my fault that this happened. that shame, I can only imagine what it was 30 years prior.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that how did she not know conversation, that's something that we had too. And it's shocking that it can happen. Like in mine, I was upstairs in the adult's bedroom and you were downstairs. And I distinctly remember oh, the parents are downstairs. Everyone's downstairs. Like, how did she not know I was upstairs in my diaper with this person? And it's just kind of that as an adult.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
As an adult, you can reflect and be like, okay, now I understand why they didn't know. But also you have that internal, how are you not protecting your child? Kind of that tug of war that's at play.
Well, and it really came down to also, we'd go on car trips and he would put a blanket over him and I. And so literally my mom's sitting right there driving and it was happening kind of thing.
Is she paying attention?
I don't know how much benefit of the doubt, but
I don't know.
One of the pivotal things for me, and this kind of solidifies it, is that my brother said something that was disrespectful to our mom. Stepdad jumped out of the car, opened up the back seat and started to the point, I still remember it clear as day. And I remember my mother just sitting in the front seat saying nothing. No, that's not me. I would there's no way. There's no way.
Who's going to be the punching bag if she tries to tell him no? It's not a good situation any means, but in hindsight, you can understand in the moment, and I think the biggest thing connecting this all to why we're starting this podcast and why we are talking about all these things. It's the transformation over the years generationally of the resources and tools we have to do better each generation. And you barely had them. I am, at the cusp of like being able to advocate and understand and, you know, discern what's going on. But 2 more generations back, it was even less. And what was therapy?
Right.
60,
well,
80
what
years
it
ago.
caused was for me to become this person. Well, let me just fast forward a little bit. My mother became pregnant. I believe that was like 1975. So younger brother was born in 1976. I'm, 10 years old at this point. And stepfather got into a police chase and ran from the police and ended up driving his car into a boatyard, and it exploded. And
the car exploded?
Yes.
I
and I remember the police coming to the door and my mother completely falling apart. She's 9 months pregnant.
Oh, geez.
And, she was like in shock, couldn't believe it. And it was really horrible. And then I actually remember, as much as I hated this man, I went into a meltdown because he was going to fix my closet and he was going to do all these things for me. It was so weird. And we all went through kind of like our grief. But what happened in that moment was, while I was released from the continued abuse from him, I lost my mother at that point. Like, I really lost my mother at that point because she was barely functioning now. And they had a business that was all him. Like, he carved tiki. She wasn't a tiki carver. She helped him. Yeah. But so she had no income. She had no car because the car is gone. She found out that he had failed to pay his life insurance policy and it had lapsed 2 days before this happened. So it really came down to, friends just gathering around and helping her. But she started taking care of other people's kids and really shouldn't have been doing that. I'll just leave it there. She really shouldn't have been doing that. And I had to step into almost an adult mode and become like a caretaker for all these kids and protector for all these kids. And,
I think, so something you're touching on here, it's interesting to look at, we all have the same brain in our family. The women have the same brain. And I'm recognizing my experience with a newborn baby. And there's no possible way I could do this without my husband. Yes, there's the people out there that are like, you find a way, you do it. But my mental state would break. The overstimulation, the need for you can't procrastinate with a baby. Baby cries, it needs you when it needs you. You can't take a breather and regulate yourself, and like those little moments just add up. I can't imagine doing that with now another baby and alone and more kids. And I think you, besides the two littlest, you spaced out all your kids so you only had like one baby at a time.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story about that as we get through it. So I never had a male role model figure ever growing up. Like all the men in my life were bad. But what that led to is when I became a teenager, I needed a boyfriend. I needed a boyfriend, was going to have a boyfriend. And the crazy thing is, I got a really good boyfriend when I was in high school. I was a sophomore. And because he was not bad to me, it didn't feel
boring.
right.
The relationship felt boring, and like there wasn't any love in it. And
yeah, I broke his heart. I still feel bad to this day. I crushed him. Because it didn't feel right.
You needed the toxicity. That was your norm.
And then when I would walk to school, I'd go by the 7-Eleven. And at the 7-Eleven was a young guy working. And I found out his parents owned the store. And I thought that was like so super cool. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to date this guy. And I did. I pursued him and started dating. And I got pregnant. And I was 16 when I got pregnant. Had your sister when I was 17. And thought I had it all together. I had it all worked out.
We all do as teenagers, don't you know?
Boy.
Know the world.
I became a mom at 17.
Knowing what I know now. Wait, hold on. Going back, how many generations of women in our family have had a child as a teenager?
Oh, I think I'm the first.
How old was your mom when she had her oldest?
I
thought it was like early 20s, late teens.
I'm trying to think. Okay. So because
there's no way we could have a generation with five. We have a picture with 5 generations in it. There's no way that can happen if everybody didn't have kids young.
Well, that was mostly me, your sister, and then her firstborn.
Sure. But still, the other 2 generations before needed to be.
Yeah, wait.
young.
Let me do the math. Hold on. I'll tell you exactly. So.
Oh, it's going to be a while.
No, she was in her 20s. She was in her 20s when she had David.
Okay. The only reason I say this is because knowing what I know now about how pregnancy and giving birth changes you psychologically in those formative years, I think I'm so fortunate. That's the wrong word. I don't know what the right word is, but looking at the difference of who I am giving birth in my 30s versus if I were to do it younger, and like what that would have changed in the development I wasn't able to get.
100%.
That's a huge component of like, I think breaking our cycle of generational trauma, and also like being able to regulate and bring things into a different perspective as a parent.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, not only did I have my first child at 17, I was not in a good marriage.
That's also a big.
It was a really awful marriage. In fact, I remember when we went to go tell his mom that I was pregnant. She wanted to pick the wedding date. She wanted to control everything. She wanted us to be married on Valentine's Day, and I was like, I don't want to get married on Valentine's Day. She looked at him and said, well, you don't have to marry the just because she's pregnant. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? She's right. And I walked out of the room. I wonder what would have happened had he not followed me to this day. But he did. He followed me out. He stood by me with that. But his mom was a problem. I mean, she wanted to control everything. We lived in his parents' condo, which they decided a roommate was going to also live there.
With a baby.
Yeah. And
oh my goodness.
This woman was not a good woman.
Good Lord.
Yeah, there was just a lot of stuff. And then he was smoking, but he had promised me he was quitting and I would catch him smoking in the garage. And so it wasn't so much that I caught him smoking, it was the fact that he lied about it, and so there was lying, and he'd go to the doctor, and instead of coming home and telling me, he'd go run to his mom, tell her first. I'm like, wait, you're married.
Hate it. Hate the enmeshment.
So our marriage only lasted 2 years. And then I was a single mom at 19.
Rough.
And fortunately, my maternal grandmother was amazing. And she helped me raise your sister, because that's when I was working 3 jobs and barely sustaining life, which makes sense as to how I met your dad. That vulnerability aspect. I was like desperately wanted a man in my life. And I can honestly tell you, until I was divorced, let's see, it is going to be, is it 8 years? Math is not my forte.
Mine either. But you're talking about your most recent divorce.
Yeah. So 2017 to now is what? Oh, we're going on 9 years.
8 years? Okay.
It'll be 9 years. 9 years in January of 2026. Is like the longest period in my life I have been without a man in my life. And that is intentional. I
was going to ask you, how much of your life was spent feeling like you needed a partner? Hold on. Not even just a man, a partner to be able to get by. Because I know this is, the conversation we always have is like, I just want to be accepted by someone. I just want to feel loved. I need to feel validated by somebody else to know that I'm worthy. That inner monologue of ours is dastardly.
And your father was 20 years older than me. So it was kind of like,
I don't think he's ever dated anyone that was his age.
Fulfill that father figure fulfillment kind of thing coming into play, because he was going to take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. He was going to take care of me. But that comes with a cost. It comes with a big cost. And then knowing Rachel's dad, it was the same thing. I was so tired of being a single mom. And again, I was not looking for a boyfriend at the time I met him. I wanted to start up a band, and because I'd had one back in the 90s.
I remember. Hold on. I think that whole situation is an episode all by itself.
No, could be.
We'll tease a little bit of it, but I think we should go back to
all I'll
childhood.
Say is I met him in the recycler.
Fitting. But
I know you can say that. But it was that desperation of like, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to go through life alone. I want to have somebody take care of me. Is that wanting somebody to take care of me, because I had never had that.
Did you ever take care of yourself?
I'm not even sure what that looks like.
It's fair. I know you're still a workaholic, so.
Still working on that.
I think that's a big piece, is that inner monologue of looking for external validation, because it's hard to look internally and tell yourself that you're loved. Tell yourself that you're...
Well, that's what I was going to say. So I got with a man who was never hit me. Everybody thinks that's, what domestic violence is. And it was actually a counselor who told me several years in that, no, honey, you're in a domestic violence situation, because it can be mental abuse.
The manipulation, the
horrible. And all I ever heard was, you're not good enough. You're stupid. You don't know how to do that. And in my brain, I'm like, I know I'm smart. I know I'm creative. I know I'm all these things, but I've got somebody telling me, no, you're not. That's stupid.
Someone that you look up to and put on a pedestal. So you take in what they're saying.
Yeah. And I knew, I knew my marriage was over long before it was over, but I was also...
Which one?
In the last one.
Okay.
I was also in that position of, I don't want to raise 2 little kids, and I didn't want to go through the family court system, because after going through it with you, I knew how brutal it was, and I was so scared the same thing was going to happen again, that I wouldn't be believed, and like this whole nightmare scenario. So that's why I'm like, I need to be single, and I need to be okay with being single and knowing how to take care of myself before I will ever be healthy enough to have somebody healthy in my life. Because a healthy person is not going to be attracted to an unhealthy person. I would just end up with another bad situation.
I want to go back to what you said about the domestic violence situation, because I know that's going to get misconstrued because the way you said it was dismissive. You absolutely were in a domestic violence situation, and it was more than just the verbal. I want to clarify.
Yeah. I don't know how much we can talk about.
Let's not take that little soundbite and run with it. We'll figure out how to put that in the next episode, because explicit actions are also violence.
Yeah.
And physical, but you weren't getting punched in the face specifically. That's the clarification.
I think we can say trafficking without getting dinged.
Yeah. But yeah, that'll be another episode. And then I also want to talk about this concept of like, at what point, because this is kind of the whole podcast, this victim mentality that you're in, like, why is the world doing this to me? My childhood is so bad. That kind of explains all of this behaviors that we're going about in our adult life. At what point do you recognize that it was your childhood being bad that's causing all of this? And then at what point do you recognize that it's no longer an excuse as an adult to use your childhood and the bad things that happened to dictate what's going on in the future? Because those are two different points.
Yeah. I mean, I started the mental health journey before you were born. And I think we talked about this in a previous episode, that my doctor gave me Valium because he said I just needed some sleep. And I lost 3 days of my life while your sister was 3 years old. And that scared the heck out of me.
Understandably.
Because motherhood has always been like super important. Like, I always wanted to do it better. I always wanted to be a better mother than the parenting that I had. And as much as I wanted that, I failed miserably. But it was like, that was so scary to me that I was not present during that time. And so that's really when I was in an inpatient program for 2 weeks. And that was just like the beginning of the journey, you know, starting to peel the layers. And the therapy that we have now is like, it just wasn't the same. Because I think there was still this, like, you just didn't talk about things. Mm-hmm. Was kind of the like, okay, what antidepressant can we throw at you?
Slap on you and fix the problem. And again, the concept of neurodivergence wasn't there. So all
which
of these
pharmaceutical will make you feel all better, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's weird to kind of like look back at, like, you know, my whole life and how things happened, but because I always just stayed like super busy, poured myself into things, thought I was doing the right thing, moved out resources, thought I was raising you guys on a farm, and that, you know, and
that's, I think, the hardest part. And what I've said to so many people in, like, externally, that are like, why are you still talking to your mom when XYZ happens? And this has been like over the course of the last 10 years. And I think the concept of, you had lived so much of your life in this way, thinking that you've done it right and doing your best, it would break your brain to have to take accountability and go back and say, like, that wasn't, you know, right. Like, that shift in gears is so hard to make at such a late stage in your life, to say, like, oh, this much of my life, recognizing I only have this much left, was, you know, not what I expected it to be.
Well, it's funny. Like, it's funny when we start talking about this. I remember the apartments we lived at, and I had a best friend at the apartments, and I remember playing marbles in the hallway. It was like an enclosed kind of hallway where we would shoot marbles in the hallway. And her bedroom was, we shared a wall, like our apartment, and we would tap to each other at night.
Code.
Little messages. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that. But then we moved out to Whittier, California. We moved to a house out there. Didn't know anybody, and took me away from my friends that I had. And then me and my brother, became like latchkey kids, because
I don't know what that is.
Like, we raised ourselves. Like, we go home from school and we've got to make our own meals and everything because mom's not home.
You're literally describing my childhood and what you did the same thing. We moved. I lost all my friends. I fended for myself after school with Lunchables.
Yeah, ours was Campbell's soup. Back, I think, when it was real chicken. Oh. So they had a wood carving business because he was this world famous tiki carver, famous guy. He was also an alcoholic.
It wasn't.
And so they'd work all day at the shop that they had and then go play piano at the bar at night. And so they were just never home, which was kind of a blessing and a curse because it's like, I wanted my mom home. I didn't want him home. Yeah. But also at this time, my brother took out his frustrations of beating me up, and he would chase me around the house.
Oh God.
Be locked out of the house. And I remember sitting on the porch, and every time a car would, turn the corner with the headlights, I'm like, is it her? Is it her? Just waiting for my mom to get home so I could feel somewhat safe again. And then my stepdad, obviously would be home, and then I wasn't safe. And a lot of it happened, like right under my mom's nose, which I never understood. How could she not know? And I've always resented that. I've always, like, how could she not know? But also I'm thankfully had some neighbors next door that they went to what's the type of the church? Pentecostal church. And I found such great joy in that. Like, they invited me to church. I started going to church with them, and, played the tambourine in church. And it was a good time. It was a good time. I think I had also such a focus on your sister too, because I knew there was a disconnect between us, and I worked so, like, you were easy. Like, you were just like, our relationship just seemed easy. And so I probably didn't, I wasn't as checked in to what was going on with you as I should have been. Whereas I was trying to figure out why I was having issues with her, and trying to fix the issues with her, and feeling guilty because I couldn't fix the issues with her. And it's also too, like, I really, really pushed for you to have a relationship with your dad. I thought, because I didn't have a relationship with my dad, I didn't want you to go through that.
That was the thing that was going to surely fix everything.
And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed and I felt like, no, you need to take her this weekend. You need to take her. And then when you said you wanted to try living at your dad's for a while, I'm like, oh gosh, I have to let her go. She'll figure it out in a couple of weeks and want to come back home. And that's when all hell broke loose,
Yeah.
But to your question is where we got here, is like, it's a journey. It's more about, like, I remember a book that I got back then, and I was thinking, like, I need to go find this book again, because I think it'd be a good read again. I think the title was Am I Normal? And it talked about how when you just wonder how everybody else lives, like, is this feeling right? Or like, am I, or am I crazy? Like, that was like a big thing for me. Like, is always feeling like,
well, we are crazy. That's the whole thing. Definitely a little bit a part of us that is
like, who else is feeling like this? Who else is going through that? Looking for people who are going through like this same, the constant questioning everything, and if you feel like you're the problem, then you don't know that you're the solution. And so you stay and you survive.
Yeah. The survival mode, getting out of survival mode is the only way that you can get out of victim mentality.
Yes.
But a lot of people can't get out of survival mode because it's like the cart before the horse. It's just a wheel chasing its tail around and around in a circle.
Also known as the comfort zone. My generation calls it getting out of your comfort zone. Because we stay where we're comfortable, even though it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. We stay in the familiar. We stay in the, well, I know how to handle this situation. I know how to get through this. Instead of taking the risk to step out and go, there's bigger things. And I give myself reminders all the time that I don't have to stay small and quiet and not have a voice. Like, that's my big thing now is I speak up because I didn't have a voice in my childhood. So now I embarrass my kids.
you touched on a big topic there of this idea of what's comfortable and what's safe. And that doesn't always mean it's the healthy, good thing. That's just the norm for you. Yeah. And learning to regulate your system outside of what's comfortable is incredibly scary. Yep. But the life that you want and the regulated, healthy place that you've been searching for is outside of that dysfunction. And it's hard to reach and it's scary to reach and you have to do it alone. And it's a giant leap of faith. And sometimes you miss, but it's worth it to get there.
Well, also for me, getting older, I used to think I had all the time in the world to fill my purpose in life. And now I'm like, dang it. I have things I want to fulfill in this life. And I feel like I've been given talent and knowledge and experience to be able to do like bigger things than I'm doing. So I'm feeling that pressure. I need to go for it. I need to get out of this stay safe place, which really isn't safe. That's the crazy thing.
It's like you're in the cabinet and the monster or the bad guy is like walking around the house and they haven't seen you yet, but you're still in fight or flight.
And yet, so I tell my audience this all the time, is like one of the biggest compliments I can get in a comment or a message is that I have inspired somebody. Because I'm like, wow, if I've already inspired somebody to keep going, like what happens when I really reach that place I want to get to? You know, it's like, I want to have that impact.
I hear you. Why isn't what you've done so far good enough though?
Because I know I've still held back. I know that I haven't accomplished yet what I set out to accomplish. And I really want my kids to look back years from now when I'm gone and say, my mom was pretty cool. Because I know I've made a lot of mistakes.
Well, you're cool enough to be on my channel and have a podcast with me. So take that for whatever grain of salt. Do you need a tissue?
Why is it when your eyes run, your nose runs?
I don't know. Something science,
Faulty
biology.
System.
I think you're touching on a lot of that fear of when people are estranged from their families, that desire to be the parent still when your adult children grow up and gain that independence and leave you, and that kind of like you're not needed anymore. You're not like, they have to want to be in your life. And if you didn't create that environment that made it so that they wanted to be there, that's hard to accept that even though you did your best, they don't want to be there. And I think that's what a lot of people focus on is, well, I did everything I could. I did the best I could. And they don't recognize that, while yes, that's true, you did the best you could, it still might not have been enough. And within that gap of the needs of the child and the good enough of the parent is where the estrangement happens.
Right. Well, we also are living in a time where it's becoming kind of in vogue to be estranged from your parent too. It's therapists are pushing it instead of pushing. Now, in not every case is there are some legitimate times to be estranged from a parent if they are truly toxic, abusive, but we use those terms too loosely now. and we don't look for the opportunities for reconciliation. And I don't make any bones about it. My oldest daughter, your sister, doesn't want anything to do with me. And I really hope like she's watching this, because there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about and love her and, have memories of her and hope she's doing great and would love to know how she's doing in her life. But I also know I can't push anything.
Yeah. It's hard to generalize what we see on social media and what we hear from, everyone that's in an estranged situation is coming from a place of hurt, I think.
Yes.
Because the only way we were able to have a good relationship is I was able to have the communication and coping skills to repair and bring us into a space that was healthy. And you were willing to listen and learn. And it took 3 years, maybe?
It is hard. It is hard to hear from your child their experience with you if it's been hurtful. It's very hard. But it doesn't go away just because you're not willing to hear it. So,
there's still things that we disagree on, but I think the ability to have healthy disagreements is the big thing that we used to end up fighting on phone calls, but I think our ADHD and forgetting and just having just someone to talk to while we're driving in the vehicle is what kept our reconnection happening. But there was a long period of time there that it was so frustrating to have a conversation between us because neither of us could hear what the other person was saying. We only heard the negation of what we were trying to convey.
And I think that's, to bring the point of what we want to do with this podcast too is, there's going to be parents hearing hopefully what I'm saying that have not been willing to listen to what their kids have to say. And likewise, from your perspective, kids who have not been willing to look at what their parents went through and why they went through it and hear what they have to say and find that place where you could forge a relationship. Because family, as much as you want to say, I don't want anything to do with them, a family member, you always grieve it if it's not there. I will always grieve that I never had a father. I never knew him, but I knew he was my father.
Yeah.
And so I think that never gets erased.
The biggest thing for me of why people always ask me oh, why do you still want a relationship with your mom? And the biggest thing was we have the same brain. It's the ability to talk to someone that understands everything the way you understand it is uncanny. And the same with my dad. I'm more in the relationship that I can't have with him because we did have good times together, which is hard to look back on because I am not talking to him for very specific reasons and they are valid reasons. And he is not a good person.
Well, that was one of the things with your dad is his ability to have very interesting conversations and very deep conversations and intelligent conversations.
But
bad relationships have good parts.
Yeah. That piece of connection with family members specifically that your brains work the same way. You understand how each other communicate from a subconscious level from when you were infants. That is a hard piece to get rid of forever. Oh, I hear baby crying, so we should wrap this up. On our next episode, I think we should talk about your most recent divorce and our estrangement and how we've talked a lot about how we repaired. Let's talk about what broke us. That should be a fun one. Get the tissues ready. Yeah. But if you're my age, send this to your parent.
And if you're my age, send this to your kids.
And together, we're going to go from wise to wise and overcome generational trauma. See you on the next one.